The RNLI, or the Royal National Lifeboat Institution, is one of the most respected and honoured organisations in our nation. Many people who have been plucked out of the sea owe those volunteer crews a debt that could never be repaid. Coxswain William Gammon was the skipper on a lifeboat that went to the aid of a Royal Naval frigate that had been caught in a storm in 1944 off the Welsh coast. With little thought for their own safety, they set off into the darkness and danger to carry out the rescue. Some years ago here in the UK, the highly respected lifeboat organisation, the RNLI, ran a national campaign under this slogan, "Fight Your Instincts," basically helping people to understand that if they're unfortunate enough to be caught in a crisis or a storm out at sea, most people who tragically drown do so because of shock, panic and the exhaustion that inevitably follows. I think when the storms of life hit us, we tread water, or try to, for a whole load of reasons. This is a very famous story from the Bible where Jesus got involved in a rescue out at sea. Let me know what you think, but first let's go back to the lifeboat story. As the lifeboat cut through the waves, the frigate came into view and the experienced coxswain assessed the perilous situation. The stricken ship was plunging up and down in the waves with its anchor airborne at the end of a chain. In an extraordinary act of seamanship, Coxswain Gammon held the lifeboat alongside long enough for 3 of the crew to jump onto the safety of its deck. He repeated the remarkable manoeuvre 12 more times until all 42 of the ship's company had been rescued. For a lifeboat crew of young men in their prime, it would have been impressive. But 2 of them were in their 60s, 2 more in their mid-70s. It is almost unbelievable. A story that has such massive resonance with the story of the Bible, the story of God. From Genesis to Revelation, God is performing rescue after rescue for individuals, families, communities, and entire nations. People believe that becoming a Christian is about taking on a pious religion. It is nothing of the sort. Okay, so how does it work in simple English for you and me? The answer to that question is found in that story from the Bible when Peter responded to the invitation from Jesus to walk on the water. If you want to know what God is like, then take a look at the life of Jesus. His words, his actions, his reactions, and his interactions with others. The Bible describes a fascinating event where Jesus and Peter, one of his disciples, meet on a lake. Peter is in a boat with a few of the others as Jesus walks towards them. Peter reckons he's up for it as well, and it goes okay to start with, but then things go badly wrong. Here's how that whole event is described in the pages of the Bible. The disciples were in trouble far away from land, for a strong wind had risen and they were fighting heavy waves. About 3 o'clock in the morning, Jesus came toward them, walking on the water. When the disciples saw him, they were terrified. In fear, they cried out, "It's a ghost!" But Jesus spoke to them at once. "Don't be afraid," he said. "Take courage, I am here." Then Peter called to him, "Lord, if it's really you, tell me to come to you, walking on the water." "Yes, come," Jesus said. So Peter went over the side of the boat and walked on the water toward Jesus. But when he saw the strong wind and the waves, he was terrified and began to sink. "Save me, Lord," he shouted. Jesus immediately reached out and grabbed him. "You have so little faith," Jesus said. "Why did you doubt me?" When they climbed back in the boat, the wind stopped.
Then the disciples worshipped him. "You really are the Son of God," they exclaimed. It's one of those moments when the humanity and the divinity of Jesus are present at the same time. Jesus is reminding Peter and all the others on that boat who he really is, fully God and fully man. If he was only God, then how could we relate to him? But if he was only man, how could he save us? But it's not just about Jesus, it's also about Peter. Believing that Jesus was a real person, even the greatest person, even the Son of God, is not enough, because a rescue involves two people, the one being rescued and the one doing the rescuing. Peter did walk on the water, at least initially, and that required a bold step on his part, one that he doesn't seem to get a lot of credit for. He had to step out of the boat into the rough seas in response to the invitation from Jesus. He was successful all the time. He had his eyes fixed on Jesus, but the minute he looked down at the waves and he took on the reality of his circumstances, he started to drown, and Jesus had to save him before both of them got into the boat. In the RNLI story, William Gammon brought the lifeboat alongside the Navy frigate, but the crew still had to take a leap of faith to get off the sinking ship and onto the safety of the lifeboat. It's the same for us when we respond to God's offer to rescue us from our storm. We have to recognize who Jesus is and then take the big step.
So if you're treading water or trying to today because of a particular storm going on in your life, let me tell you that Jesus still rescues people today. Very interested to know what you think about that. If you want to hear more from me, you know what to do, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.